friends. Welcome to another episode of the Ringside Rundown Podcast. My name is Eric Vasquez, and joining me on the line is my podcasting partner in crime. Yes, that rhymes. She is Shay Hickson. Shay, what's going on, my friend?
What is up on this fine Tuesday night? Nothing too much. Can't really complain today. Been
Yeah,
pretty decent.
the weather's getting nicer. It's getting
Yeah,
a little warmer.
yeah.
How are things in Pittsburgh?
They've been up and down with the weather. Like Monday it was in the mid 80s, and then today it was like 70, and now
Mm.
tomorrow it's gonna be like 85.
Yep, it's getting warmer. It's getting warmer. So
I don't like it.
yeah, I hope you wrestling fans stocked up on your deodorant because it seems like the heat's coming early.
Please, yeah.
Yeah,
We know that stereotype, and unfortunately, it is not far off. But
yeah.
just stay
Well,
clean.
yeah, stay nice and hygienic,
Yeah.
Not too much to ask for from wrestling fans. But for any new wrestling fans that are listening to this podcast, first of all, welcome to the Ringside Rundown Podcast. We are a question and answer based podcast that deals with pro wrestling. And that is basically you guys have questions for us, our loyal listeners, and some new listeners have questions for us. And we answer them on the show. And that's basically how we format everything, how we talk about what's going on in professional wrestling. This week, we have a lot of questions to do with the WWE Draft, which concluded on Monday. Monday Night Raw was the second and final day for the draft. A lot of questions, a lot of stuff to get through with that, and I'm sure we have a couple questions about AEW as well. So it should be a fun episode, chock full of information, some good old conversation about pro wrestling. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's get into it with Jeff's questions first. Starting off with the draft. So it's a two-parter. So which draft pick was the biggest surprise for us, and which brand do we think won the draft, quote unquote? I mean, surprise pick happened pretty early. I was really not expecting Kiana James to go above pretty much every other woman that was drafted from NXT. Like,
Yeah.
that one I think was my surprise because I easily would have expected like Lyra Valkyria. I would have expected maybe Roxanne Perez, but that obviously didn't end up happening. But yeah, Kiana James being the first woman to be drafted was kind of shocking to me. But obviously, if they see something in her, she wouldn't have been, picked. Um, what was your biggest pick? Or surprise pick?
Yeah, it definitely has to be. I would say the same thing. Kiana James going from NXT above all the women, above Lyra
Yeah.
Valkyria, the former champion, and basically being the first major NXT pick of the draft. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But if you look at her body of work from NXT, it's really good. She's really solid in the ring. She has a great look to her. I love the fact that they stuck her with the old 80s, early 90s deal where she has a 9 to 5 job and WWE is kind of like her side gig, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So she works the corporate world from 9 to 5 and she just comes and does some WWE stuff on the side. I think that's phenomenal. And I think she's perfect for that character. So I think she was definitely the most surprising. And I think Roxanne, maybe not shaking things up, even though she's the NXT Women's Champion, there's like uncertainty with the rules when it comes to being a champion in NXT and being called up. So
Yeah.
I don't know how they worked that because they took the belt off of Solo Sikoa when he won the North American Championship, but when
Yeah.
Dominic was the North American champion, he was doing both shows, pulling double duty, no problem. So I don't know, but yeah, I think Kiana James for me was the most surprising pick.
I would definitely agree with you there. And then I feel like Raw won the draft. Maybe not easily, but just going down some of the names like Jey Uso, Seth
Mhm.
Rollins, Braun Breaker, Liv Morgan. Um, keep going. I mean, obviously Shane and Zoe, but I'm biased.
Hmm.
Imperium, Damage Control, CM
Damage
Punk.
Control was a big one.
I I don't know if we have a question about that later, but I'm genuinely surprised I didn't split them up. I
Mm,
was fully expecting like Dakota and Io to go to one and Kyrie and Asuka to go to the other, or just Dakota go somewhere. I was kind of hoping she would have stayed on SmackDown with Io
mm,
because obviously, selfishly, I'm still hoping we get that triple threat at SummerSlam. I'm not entirely sure if that's going to happen now because two out of the three are on Raw, but I don't know. Maybe Triple H knows something we don't, which is probably the case. But even still, looking at you got Strowman, you got LWO, Drew McIntyre, Judgment Day, Ilya Dragunov. Like I'd say Lyra Valkyria. Like
yeah, those two
yeah,
alone, the addition of Dragunov and Lyra Valkyria and Dijak, who went post
yeah,
broadcast draft pick. Uh,
yeah.
Dijak is another big addition. So if I would have to gauge which one of the two, I would definitely say Raw kind of won the draft.
I feel like Raw always does though.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just feel like it's a bigger show. So, I mean, it's kind of skewed a little bit, but I mean, I can't complain because I'd say it's a pretty much all my favorites are on one show now, so that helps. But
Yeah,
um,
there you
living living the dream.
go.
So we're gonna stick with the draft a little here. So Jeff wants to know why was the draft so damn boring? They should have shaken it up a lot and made it exciting, but the draft just felt bland. Okay, so I know that it's tough because it's very easy to just immediately be like, well, no one changed.
Right.
But I had seen on Twitter that Sean Ross Sapp said 19 people switched shows total during the draft.
Mhm.
I think I think it just didn't help of just the timing when your first literally four picks, three of them stayed on the same brand, and the only reason the one didn't was because it was Carmelo Hayes coming up from NXT. But
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about Carmelo.
yeah, it doesn't really help things with your draft when you literally pick the first again three out of the four and they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, so I can see where they were coming from because even just looking at the draft from night one, just going off of how many people didn't change. There was one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 people in night one alone didn't change brands. So that probably didn't help a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think what helped either is that a lot of these didn't change at all in like per round. So like
Mm.
round three, LA Knight stayed on SmackDown, Ricochet stayed on Raw, Bloodline stayed on SmackDown, and Styles stayed. No, he was round four, but still, it's just like they weren't really making it. They weren't really shaking it up a little bit.
The
It-
changes, there were huge gaps.
yeah, there was a lot of like these couple picks in a row are staying, and one of these are changing. So the problem
Right,
was it
yeah.
just wasn't evening out, and so I think that's why it kind of got skewed a little bit where it's like, oh well, no one's changing at all. It's like, no, they were. They just were kind of put in very odd spots. I'm not entirely sure why they did it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But at least it
Yeah.
kind of changed a little bit. But
It
yeah, it was
did.
a little lackluster, I think.
Yeah, I really the SmackDown draft, because we've been doing the live streams, it felt more interesting on Friday.
Yeah,
Last night was kind of wishy-washy, like it wasn't very interesting. It just didn't feel fun, you
yeah,
know. And the thing is, like, the concept of the draft was to follow almost like a real sports-based kind of draft,
yeah,
but with the overflow of people staying on the brands that they were originally on, it really isn't like a draft, because you think of a draft and it's like the athlete is coming from either high school or college ball going to the pros. It's an automatic change.
yeah,
So like drafting to stay on the same brand isn't a big change, you
no,
know?
not at all.
Um so I think that's what people were kind of expecting. They tried to make it
Hmm.
like a real sports feel to it, and I think something like Carmelo Hayes can use that. He's a first round draft pick to kind of elevate his character.
Yeah.
I think that's smart. It's just, yeah, when you break it down on paper, okay, a lot of this stuff makes sense. You see that there were some changes, some shifting around. It just felt for the presentation to keep people engaged, to keep people involved, to keep people talking. The draft really wasn't that interesting, at least on TV.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. There really wasn't anything like special about it. I
Right.
mean, even when you brought in people like the guest like draft announcers, like you had the Dudleys, which was like cool. You had like Michelle McCool and Tori Wilson, which I thought was very strange. But I'm also not gonna complain. And then you had JBL and Teddy Long, which is like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. But yeah, they kind of I'm not gonna say they overhyped it. They just
Mhm.
it just didn't feel like any different really. I mean, they definitely did hit the feel of like a sports draft because you had the war room, you had the people celebrating when they picked, you had the people mad when they didn't get the one they wanted. So it's like they did that right, but yeah, it just wasn't really I don't know, it just wasn't really too special. So
Yeah, it doesn't it's not it just wasn't interesting. And I know we have another question about the draft, but I want to save it, cuz save my ideas, because I do have ideas and ways to fix it, but it correlates with a question that we have later on in the show.
all right, so we'll hold on to that one then. So let's move on. And do we think WWE is going to rush a title onto Jade Cargill in the form of the tag team titles, or does Damage Control actually have a chance of retaining?
Hmm.
Oh, this is a tough one. I I don't really know. I have a bad feeling that they're going to throw those titles on them, but I kind of don't want them to. Not because I don't want Jade or Bianca to win the titles, but it's just like I kind of just don't want them to take it off of Kyrie and Asuka just because they're there.
Right.
It's just
Yeah, I don't have if you're a Kabuki Warriors fan, if you're a Damage Control fan,
I'd
I
be
don't
nervous.
yeah, I don't have a good feeling about this.
I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not. So I'm like, this is not gonna be.
Yeah, I don't have
I
a good
feel
feeling.
I feel bad for my one friend because he like outside of Jeff, I have a friend here in town who loves Io Sky, loves Asuka, loves Kyrie. So I think he's gonna have a very bad month when it comes to the to the women because yeah, he hasn't had the greatest luck with his favorites lately, and unfortunately, I think that Backlash is not going to be any different. It's
Yeah.
just unless maybe Dakota costs them the title initially, which I mean, she could. She is shifty like that, so
Mm.
maybe she can delay the inevitable, but I feel like unfortunately it's just going to be a matter of time.
Yeah, I think Jade is just they her potential star power is just too big for her for them to change it. But like you said, something shifty could happen where they give them the loss. And because of the fact that it happened under nefarious means, people can look at that and say, well, Jade lost, but it really wasn't because she was beaten clean. Something bad had to happen. But it,
Yeah.
it really requires people to suspend their disbelief and buy into the wrestling story, which is hard these days because a lot of people want to be analytical. They want to pick apart the angles and the storylines, which is okay. But again, that's when you miss the whole point, is
Yeah.
that if it happened under nefarious means, like Dakota Kai interfered in the match, causing uh, Jade and Bianca to lose, you know, if you're thinking with a wrestling brain, Jade lost, but it wasn't a clean loss. Like something happened. So,
Yeah.
but that's kind of that's people have to think with their wrestling brain rather than their detective brain, or try to nitpick holes in the plot.
Yeah.
So that's a little difficult with fans. Yeah, I just think they don't want to give Jade a loss. They want to, she should, in their eyes, that she'll look great with the title. Bianca obviously is always better with the title because she always deserves to hold some type of gold because she's that type of athlete in
Yeah.
uh in WWE. But yeah, I
Yes.
don't have high hopes for the Kabuki Warriors. I don't think it's going to go well for them, but at
No.
least they'll make it interesting, and they'll make Jade and Bianca look good.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff. I know we you were hoping that maybe we could try and give you
Yeah.
some help, but yeah. But it's a good point too that you brought up where it's like wrestling can't you can't really get technical and analytical when it comes to wrestling because
Yeah.
a loss can be two drastically different definitions depending on what happens. Like you can't just be like, well, she lost and that's it. So that like that's bullshit. It's like, no, it also has to be the way she lost. So it just kind of you kind of can't look at it from a too much of a logical perspective. You have to have a little imagination, I guess, or
Yeah, you,
just
you got to suspend your disbelief. You
yeah,
got to be a wrestling fan, and a wrestling fan would say, if this was to go down and Dakota interfered or somebody interfered to help the Kabuki Warriors beat Jade and Bianca, you
yeah,
look at that and go, well, Jade lost, but she didn't lose because they beat her. They had to cheat. So that
yeah,
shouldn't look like a bad thing on her end. But people are going to look at it and go, well, WWE wanted to put a title on her, and that's the only reason that the Kabuki Warriors lost, and they're being
yeah,
held down. And it's just like, this is why I don't like people. I don't feel like people are having actual fun watching wrestling. They just want
yeah.
to be detectives and be analytical and be pundits, and you're missing the idea of being having fun as a wrestling fan.
Yeah, that's kind of what this is all about,
Yeah.
believe it or not. Yeah, so sorry, Jeff, but I just don't see it happening.
Sorry, bud.
I wish, but you never know. All right. With WWE seemingly entering a partnership with Marigold and AEW seemingly having one now at Stardom, Gato Move, and Tokyo Joshi Pro, which company do you think will make better use of the Joshi talent each company can bring to their respective tables? Um,
Mm.
I feel like
Mm.
from a consistency wise, I think AEW would because granted, AEW's women's division has been kind of sometimes, but I feel like the one consistent spot they have is making their Joshis look legit. Um,
Mm.
WWE, unfortunately, due to reasons we already know about, kind of I don't know how to describe it. They didn't really see what literally everybody else with eyes saw when it came to the Joshi women. So
Yeah, that's my one big scare. It's actually funny that you say that because I was talking with a friend and we were talking about Saray. I believe that's how you
yeah,
pronounced her name when she came to NXT,
yeah,
and
sorry,
how that was just a big flop.
yeah,
And it was just kind of, it almost was kind of uncomfortable what they
yeah,
did, what they
yeah.
did with her. So I'm kind of on the opposite end,
Mm.
because New Japan is kind of in a disarray right now.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
heard about that, that was so fucking stupid. Like,
yeah. As a company right now, it's not a good look for New Japan. They are
no,
losing customer information. Apparently they wanted to make IDs or something for one of their fan portals or something
yeah,
like
their
that.
fan club or something.
Yeah. So they had people's IDs or information on a USB stick, and they misplaced the USB stick. And this had like hundreds of thousands of pieces of information on it. So not a good look.
No.
Tanahashi as the president, a lot of people are saying, AEW man or New Japan management is the reason Okada left for AEW. Like he had to get
Mm,
out of
I
there.
mean, stuff like this happens, and you kind of can't really argue with that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So
yeah,
like, I just feel, and like with AEW, it's like a lot of it is one step forward, two steps back sometimes. So, and then you
yeah,
play the delicate game of how do New Japan and how do AEW both get their talent over without sacrificing the other, making the other
Yeah.
company look bad, which is essentially the issue when you do these joint things. Is you have to be professional and come to work around that. Some of your people are going to lose, some of their people are going to lose. I think with the fact that Marigold is still technically a new promotion, they don't have the leverage going up against WWE to really put their foot down on certain things.
Yeah.
WWE is always going to do what's best for WWE, but they probably recognize that there is some great talent coming from Marigold that they want to expand upon. And I think WWE is capable of learning from their mistakes at this point. I don't think
Yeah.
if AEW, if we analyze any mistakes that they've made with their partnerships with foreign promotions, there might have been some missteps. I don't think WWE makes the same missteps twice.
Yeah, I feel like too it's obviously a different group. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd like to be wrong. I hope I hope I am wrong, but you just never know. But I mean, I just hope both of them have great partnerships with these companies because I think we always say wrestling flourishes when everybody wins in a way. So
Yeah.
let's just see it happen.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to see it happen. I'm excited because I kind of definitely want to dive in with what's going on with Marigold. It's just the more you learn about what's going on, the more you learn about what like Rossi and stuff like that. Like it kind of makes you uneasy, Like
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
the stuff you hear, and it's just like, ah, man. So do I want to support that? Do I want to invest my time in that? So it's a little
Yeah.
tricky, but well, fans will figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? Uh, all right. So, which four tag teams make up our tag team Mount Rushmore? Jeff's
Mm,
is the Legion of Doom, the Hart Foundation, the Dudley Boys, and Harlem Heat. That's a good one.
that's a good one. That's
That's a
good.
really good one.
That's a good one. I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
Definitely put up the Legion of Doom.
Hmm.
Definitely gonna put up the Usos. I think the
Yeah.
Usos are, to me, I mean, I'm being biased, but to
Yeah.
me, they're the greatest tag team in WWE history. Um, and then I'm going to have to go with the Rockers because
Yeah.
the Rockers, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty. For my introduction into wrestling, obviously, was during the time where Hulk Hogan was at his peak. So I was a big Hulkamaniac. I was a Hulkamaniac freak, like
Yeah.
just ridiculous. But on the same level was my fandom for the Rockers. I loved the Rockers. I loved Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty. I literally thought that they could fly
Yeah.
when I was watching them on TV as a kid, to the point where I would be like jumping off of my bed, landing on the floor, and I'm thinking, "Wait a second, that didn't go right." Like
that
that's not.
didn't happen.
Yeah, that didn't look like the way it did on TV. So I was a huge Rockers fan, so I have to put them up there. And then last team to put up there, I want to go with Heart Foundation, but I feel like I don't know if they had a big enough impact on me as a tag team when they were around because I was still pretty young during their
Yeah.
run. But I probably, for historical purposes, will probably put up the Hart Foundation.
Yeah.
Just because it's Bret Hart,
Yeah. I mean, can't
you
really
got,
go wrong with that.
yeah, you got to put him up there.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say that's a good one. See, and it's funny because obviously mine's is going to be different because obviously I was in a different time.
Yeah, I'm a
I
little
do.
older.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I would have to agree with you on the Usos for sure because, I mean, how can you not include them? It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, for me, obviously the Hardys. That was
Yeah,
like my team girl. I mean, like for the longest time, Jeff Hardy was like my favorite wrestler of all time. For
yeah. How
like,
can you forget about the Hardys?
I know that's why I'm like, no, I'm gonna come in and save the day with that one. Don't worry about
Good
it.
one, good one.
This is tough. Mm. Like, I want to put the New Day in there because, I mean, is it the New Day is just like you have to include them in any like best tag team conversation too, just because of just
Yeah,
the
the longevity.
yeah, where also coming from a fact of like their original like group was not going to work at all. No one bought into like the preaching whatever they were doing, but
Mm,
then once they just started to like have fun with it, it kind of just took off, and it's just
yeah,
the fact that
yeah,
people are still really cheering for him today, and even when one third of them's missing, like I'd say that's a pretty good one. But I feel like I feel like I'd have to add an extra like second like an extra little space for New Day, but I feel like the other two I have to put on for kind of the obviously same reasons as the Hardys, have to be the Dudleys and Edge and Christian.
mm,
Like the TLC, like those matches, like come on, the ladder matches, like they revolutionized the game when it came to those, and just that whole just this thing of Edge spearing Jeff off the like title just has stuck into my like has been burned in the back of my mind for decades at this point. But granted, three out of the four are all from the same era, but that just shows you how impactful that era was back then for
yeah,
tag
yeah.
teams, especially. Like again, they changed the game, so
Yeah, that might have been the best era for tag teams was the Attitude Era. And it's almost like the same thing if you think about it. Like with my age, it correlates with like the Rockers and Legion of Doom. But then if you look
yeah,
at your age, it definitely correlates with that time frame of the Attitude Era. So that's why those teams would have that sort of impact on you. So it definitely makes perfect sense. But yeah, I think both the eras that we chose with our kind of surprise picks, me going back to like the golden age of wrestling, and then you going back to the attitude era shows like the big contrast. But that's what's fun about these questions.
yeah, and of course, there's going to be people like I don't know, probably for example, looking at mine, like how could you not put the Heart Foundation? How could you not put like whatever? And it's like, yes, there's no denying that they're a great team. Like anybody that we've talked about deserves to be on a Mount Rushmore of tag teams somewhere somehow, but I can only appreciate them from what I've seen on like documentaries and just going
Right,
back and watching the matches. I never lived through them, so I don't
right.
have that same connection as you could have, as Jeff could
Hmm.
have. So I'm sorry I was born in the wrong period, but I'd say mine was pretty good too, though.
Yeah, no, yours is great. Yours is you picked it based on merit, achievement, impact.
Yeah.
It all makes perfect sense.
All right. So see, I feel like we can have some very interesting little. I love how literally all three of ours were different in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff and I still both said the Dudleys, but yeah, that's just the beauty of again wrestling of people seeing things through different lenses through different time periods. So
Yeah, I mean, and it's wrestling's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years,
yeah,
evolving from what it is now. So it's like, again, to some people, the historical aspect is what makes an impact on them, and to others, being there, experiencing what it's like to see those things happening live for the first time, that's what leaves an impact on them. So that's the beauty of wrestling, and any other form of entertainment, like I always say, is subjective. So
yeah,
you like what you like.
exactly. All right, and Jeff's last question is with Braun Breaker, Ilya Dragunov, and Gunther all on the same brand, how soon do you think WWE puts those men in the ring against each other, and which one is the biggest threat to Damian Priest? Oh, well, Mom will have to skip
Mm.
this part of the question. She probably won't want to hear that. I feel like they'd be silly not to at least put two of them against each other sooner rather than later. I mean, I feel like they're going to save Ilya and Gunther because I think that's what everybody wants to see.
Hmm.
And I mean, hell, even Ilya said, because I don't remember if it was on a WWE thing or not, where they asked like, "Oh, well, how lucky was it that you and Gunther got on the same brand?" And he said it was destiny. And
Mm.
yeah, because they beat the shit out of each other in
Yeah.
NXT. So I would like to see it, but as we've said many, 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 many times on the show, we don't need it right away. Give them time to build a story to it.
Yeah.
either one of those two could have a good story with Braun Breaker too. So in due time, we'll see it. But
Yeah,
you're
it's
gonna see something happen sooner rather than later.
yeah, and it's the perfect cocktail because if you take those three names, Gunther, Ilya, Braun, you mix in Drew McIntyre, you mix
Yeah.
in Sheamus, who's back, you mix in the hard hitters, Bronson Reed, who's starting to make an impact. They got a lot of beef
Yes.
on Raw,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're living in an era right now where like people want to see two dudes just beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
And those names in any fashion or form is a perfect concoction of just dudes beating the shit out of each other.
E-
Um
Exactly.
yes,
Um,
so it's more so like you said. You said it perfectly. If we just sit back and let WWE and Triple H and his creative team do what they do what they usually do, what we've known that they can do, what we've seen that they can do. I just say sit back and
let
just
them cook.
yeah, let them do their thing. I always think about it like if I was offered a chance to be on the creative team for WWE, how would I approach it? Would I approach it and say, I think this needs to be fixed, this needs to be worked. A lot of it, I'm just sitting back and going, well, damn, the way WWE is going now creatively in terms of their storylines, because there's going to be a lot of discourse about how the show kind of feels the same in terms of the booking, but I
Yeah.
kind of see it differently. But I don't know how to pinpoint how just yet. What I
Hmm.
do know is creatively, if I was on the team, if I was new, I'd just be like, well, whatever you guys are doing is working.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna sit back and relax and like let you guys cook and let you guys do your thing, and I'll just chime in here and there. But honestly, the way your creative brains are working, go ahead and do your thing. And that's a situation when you say names like Gunther, Ilya, Braun, in terms of a direct threat to the World Heavyweight Championship, you got to go with Gunther.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like Ilya followed closely in second place.
Yeah,
We're not going to talk about that right now because Damien's going to have a long and good title reign
that's what we
for
hope for.
God, you and me and Mambo, all
Yeah.
three of us. Just give him a chance. I mean, there is a chance they can make that happen, but I think you and I will talk about that later because I saw your clip on off of TikTok. I know what we could talk about, but
Oh, which
we'll
clip is that one?
the how you would book Drew
Oh,
and CM Punk,
Drew
but
and CM Punk.
we'll save that. I think we may have a question for it, but we may be able to find it
All right.
a spot for it later. So that was all of Jeff's questions. So Jeff, thank you as always.
Thanks, Jeff.
Let me go through. I don't know why Twitter jumbles these up sometimes. Let us go with Jack's questions next. So funny how him and Jeff pretty much had the same opening question. Is the draft necessary? Just feels like an SEO ploy. The only parts that feel like a draft are the NXT reactions. Would rather them just have a trade deadline. That
Mm,
would be fun. That would be a fun one.
yes. And this is where I said I wanted to save uh my thought process on the draft because I read that question, and honestly the idea of a trade deadline, when you break it down and you think about it, it's honestly one of the most genius ideas like one of our listeners has had, because if you think about it, the reason again that the draft to a lot of people fell flat was because there was, in their eyes, on the production, a lack of change. If you break it down numbers wise, it adds up differently, but presentation wise, it just felt like a lack of change. And the reason is because, like I said earlier, getting drafted in sports is a change. You go from
Yeah.
high school, college ball to pro ball. It is a big change. So you see a different environment. That's what people wanted to see. A trade deadline is almost perfect because it guarantees that there has to be a change. you
Yeah.
know, a change in environment, a change of scenery. There is that change that everybody's looking for in terms of what they wanted in the draft. Here's the thing that I thought would be best. Imagine if they do a trade deadline and they incorporate a bunch of the legends and the old school acts to act as almost sports agents for these
Yeah.
performers. Could you
Yeah,
imagine?
advisors.
Yeah, could you imagine JBL being an advisor for Carmelo Hayes in his contract
Oh my
negotiations?
god.
You know, and then you
Jeez.
build JBL up to be like the Scott Boris of the WWE. For those
Oh.
that don't know who Scott Boris is, he's one of
Ugh.
the most prolific and most legendary sports agents of all
Ugh.
time. His client list is spectacular in terms of revenue and what his client list brings in. Imagine if they position someone like JBL to be like the Scott Boris of the WWE. Thus, he starts building a stable of clients, almost
Yeah.
like a Heenan family or a
Yeah.
Dangerous Alliance, and that's how you get back to kind of the old school aspect of an old timer having a stable built around him of young wrestlers, and he's like, this is my client, and we're gonna he starts making trade-offs, and then
Yeah.
you could build storylines of someone getting traded from the JBL squad and they can't retaliate because they're going to a new brand, you know,
Mhm.
and he works for this brand. There's so many
It's a drama.
avenues. Yeah, it's so many avenues you can go with the trade deadline, because again, if you do a trade deadline, it guarantees moves have to be made. You know, nobody stays on the same brand. There
Yep.
has to be some switch around. You could do inter promotional trades, like three-way trades between NXT, SmackDown, and Raw. I mean, it's a brilliant idea.
It really is. I mean, you said it perfectly. I don't really have anything to add on that one. Just the amount of drama it could create would be insane.
The agent idea of, like, you know, JBL being one, Medusa being one, and working with
Yeah.
like Damage Control because she has a close connection to Japanese wrestling for the
Mhm.
women, so they trust her. So you bring Medusa into the fold, Alundra Blaze, and she
Yeah.
builds a stable of women, you know, performers. I mean, it's like there's so many things you could do there. The trade deadline idea is probably what WWE was aiming for with the draft. It's
Yeah.
just the execution didn't fit. Like you said, on paper, plenty of draft picks moved around, went different places. It's just the presentation, it didn't feel that way.
No, it didn't. Like that that's just a really good idea. That whole trade deadline thing. And then literally imagine the drama and the tension that would happen if we'll like say like Rhea never got hurt. So she's still the champion. Liv's trying to go after her. At the last possible second, Liv gets traded over to SmackDown. Could
Mm.
you imagine just the hatred and just the mental breakdown that woman would have? And like you'd have Adam Pierce being like, "Liv, look, sorry, I get that this is what you wanted, but I had no choice. I had to trade somebody over. It just happened to be you." And then just all hell breaks loose. Like that would be the kind of drama we want to see.
Yeah, and that's exactly the chaos and the drama that WWE was trying to bring with the draft. It didn't work. If
No.
like, okay, Damage Control going to Raw, that was cool. All the NXT call-ups, that was cool because it's a change. Nobody
Yeah.
really cares that KO is staying on SmackDown.
Yeah.
You know, nothing like that. And it's no offense to the person, it's just it doesn't matter. We don't care that Jade Cargill is staying on SmackDown because she
Because we
just signed
knew.
the contract. Yeah, she just signed the quote unquote contract a month ago or so. You know,
Yeah.
same thing with CM Punk. When he came back, he signed a contract to be exclusive to Raw. So why are we making a big deal that CM Punk is a Raw draft pick?
Yeah, some of those are just like telegraphed, and it's just like, why are we even doing this?
Mm,
Because we know for a fact that if Bianca got drafted to SmackDown, so's Jade, because you're not going to split the tag team up literally right before the pay per view.
yeah. So it's just like you a lot of those just like nothing burgers, basically.
Yeah, it was a little silly.
Yeah.
Just a little silly. But speaking of silly, Why was Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City helping the heel beat up the top good guy? Stop letting the sponsors dictate and ruin your booking. That was so fucking stupid.
Hey,
That was so stupid.
it's stupid in a logic sense, but not stupid in a money sense. And that's the end all be all. You know, it's like the old cliche saying, money talks, bullshit walks. And you know,
Yeah,
do you Patrick Mahomes is a prime signed athlete.
yeah,
So there's the tie-in with Logan. So if Logan tells Triple H, he tells WWE, hey, I can bring in the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
yeah,
You know,
unfortunately.
yeah, I know you hate that, but it's
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
He is the current Tom Brady. So it's like and then you go, we can probably do this. We can probably do something a little fun, nothing too crazy, but it might get people talking. Is Triple H gonna say no? Like
No.
you know what I'm saying? Is he gonna say and in the end, yes, it was dumb the way it was set up, but it still made the heels look like incompetent idiots because
Yeah.
they gave JD McDonough a second big head, you
Oh
know.
god, that was oh that just a clip of poor Damien just being like,
He's so overwhelmed with the foolishness of
yeah.
what's going on with Judgment Day. And I said it last night watching the show. It's funny because you got the the Mexican dude with the mullet and the mustache. His arm is in a sling. You got
Hmm.
JD McDonough, which is like the little kid brother that you gotta watch. You
Yeah.
got Finn Balor that all he cares about is counting his abs. You know,
Yeah.
you got no Rhea Ripley to help you out. He's basically babysitting right now, all while
Yeah.
trying to be the world heavyweight champion. And
Hmm.
then, so I get the sentiment, like it's kind of dumb for Patrick Mahomes to be helping out Logan Paul, but their tie-in is that they have a working relationship, and in the end, the heels, the bad guys, still look like a bunch of idiots because that photo of Balor
Oh,
and Logan Paul looking at JD with Jey Uso in the middle. That is
yeah.
honestly the funniest picture I've seen in a while because it's so organic and so real. It's just it was great. It was perfect. I mean, again, Triple H is not going to pass up the opportunity to work with Patrick Mahomes or have Patrick
No.
Mahomes being talked about. I don't know if they talked about it on ESPN. I'm sure Pat McAfee talked about it on his show. But again, that's what you want. That's how you get
Hmm.
eyes on your product. Not that WWE needs more eyes on their product, but their whole motive is if we get one more new eye the following day on our product that we didn't have before, that's a win. That's what we want. So
Yeah.
the other company can kind of should take a you know take a little bit of tips from that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would help a little bit. Uh, Speaking of Judgment Day, is his Dawn betraying Rhea? Will this become a love triangle between Liv, Rhea, and Dawn? We know Triple H.
Mm,
Everything that goes on in the background of an interview or whatever isn't there by accident.
mm,
So when you had Liv Morgan walking out of a locker room, and then Dominic should go in shortly out of the same locker room, it kind of makes you go, a little bit. Like,
yeah, and
Dom, what are we doing here?
yeah, and the funny thing is, typically we look at love triangle angles in WWE and we go, ugh, because
Yeah.
they've been so horrible. I mean, the Lana Bobby Lashley
Oh,
storyline with Liv
God, don't
Morgan, probably the worst love triangle angle in all of professional wrestling history.
Well, maybe love
Which one would
triangle,
be
but
worse?
well, it's not a love triangle, but Lacey Evans and Ric Flair.
That was bad, but it was even weirder because they started incorporating Charlotte, Rick's daughter, and she was the main sort of like like she was the trying to be the voice of reason in all of it. But why would your daughter be the voice of reason in your love affair? So it was just
Yeah.
weird. Same thing with like Tori Wilson, her dad, and Dawn Marie.
Oh
You know,
God, yeah.
you see when they do the when Vince used to do these love things, knowing what we know about Vince now, it's so on brand and it makes so much
Yes.
sense. But
Yes.
back then, the only thing we could surmise out of all of it was that, man, this is really fucking weird. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that was our only summation of the whole thing. Um, but I feel like Triple H is going to be smarter about this. He's doing little tricks and little things like what we saw last night with Dom and Liv coming out of the same room at separate times. Eventually, Rhea's going to catch on to this. It's going to,
Yeah.
because again, if you think about it, Rhea, when she comes back from her injury, she's going to be the hottest baby face in
Oh,
the company.
yes.
There's
Not
no
even close.
way. I mean, she wasn't getting booed and they were surviving off of her cool points. But now
Yeah.
we're going to get a fresh, rejuvenated absence makes the heart grow fonder Rhea Ripley. It's
Yep.
going to catapult her in a new direction. So she has to come out at looking like the good person. You make her vulnerable by confronting Dom and saying, "What is this about? Why would you do this? What's going on? Blah blah blah." And that's how you
Mhm.
further the storyline. It's soap opera drama, but again, it's wrestling soap opera drama. It's perfect. It's like this is what
Yeah.
WWE does. You know, this is their greatness, and this is Triple H's creativity, where he's not going to insult our intelligence, try to do something campy or cheesy or borderline just weird, because again, you realize with a bunch of weird sex pest type people like Vince McMahon, when they
Yeah.
have like a creative outlet like he did with WWE, they try to put in these weird things like thinly veiled within the storyline, and then it's deeply coded, and then you only realize it when stuff like the weird stuff that he did comes out.
Yeah.
So obviously TKO, Triple H, they want to stay away from anything like that. So they're going to do this in a smart way that it doesn't insult our intelligence. And we're also going to look at it and like, man, this is really like a soap opera for people that don't like to watch All My Children and stuff like that, or General Hoss. You know, this is our soap
Yeah.
opera right here. You know, so I think it's going to be great.
I think so. I feel like I have more faith in Triple H doing something like this than Vince because he actually can think of it with competence
Yeah.
and maturity. So it'll be interesting, and I don't feel bad for Dominic when Rhea rips him in half, literally.
Yeah, she's going,
Um,
and that's the thing, is it's a perfect way to capitalize on the fact that there's no way people are gonna boo Rhea Ripley when she comes back.
no, and it's like, and I love how again Triple H is very good at letting people organically kind of push the storyline forward without the wrestlers even doing anything because
Mhm.
he didn't make a big deal out of, oh well, Liv left that same locker room and right before Dominic did. People on online caught on to that. It
Yeah,
organically turned into, what are you doing, Dom? What the hell is this all about? And it's just
yeah,
like he is very good at organically getting people riled up and just leaving those little Easter eggs for people to pick up and being like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. Like, what's happening? Because he knows people are gonna like tag Rhea. They're gonna talk about Rhea. Oh, Rhea's gonna be pissed when she hears about this. And eventually she's gonna play into it as well. They're
yeah.
not stupid.
Twitter's a bunch of snitches.
Yeah. Snitches get stitches, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think in this case though, it's a little warranted, but yeah, Triple H is a master at letting people organically kind of push the story forward without having to overdo it. So I think he could make a decent love triangle.
Yeah,
But
again,
mainly because the bar is very low, but
yeah,
that means
yeah,
we have
that's
nowhere to
my
go it
point.
up.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it's gonna be one that'll insult our intelligence, so I'm actually looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Let's just hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
All right. So this one's just a comment. Mariah May is becoming the workhorse of Dynamite. I'd have to agree.
I love me some Mariah May, man. She's just
Me
fantastic.
too.
She's just her. She's a great wrestler. I'm enjoying kind of going back and seeing some of the stuff she did in Japan.
Yeah.
Just seeing her wrestling ability, but just like the cool thing about Mariah May is she's everything that the prototypical diva would look like,
Yep.
but she can wrestle her ass off.
Yeah, she can.
That's the cool thing. She can be the girliest girly, and just be kind of interesting and just kind of, wow, that girl is amazing. And the way you see the way she is with Mina Shirakawa, and you're just like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is interesting, this is intriguing.
Ugh.
You look at her and you're like, my God, she's beautiful. And then she's just German suplexing people out of nowhere with the greatest of ease, and it's like, wow, this girl is really a badass. She's a Barbie badass, you
She's
know.
wild.
Yeah, so I kind of, as much as I love Toni Storm and everything, like I said, I'm not a fan of her being a cosplay of the OG Toni Storm.
Yeah.
I'd rather her just be Mariah May, and she would still fit in the whole equation with Toni. When her and Toni split up, however way it's gonna go, I think they're just going to flourish, and if they have a feud together, it's going to be great because they come from the same system. You know,
Yeah.
they both came up the Japanese. That's where they made their name is in Japan.
Yeah.
So they understand it, and Mariah May is pretty much she's the follow-up to Toni Storm, being a person from a different area going to Japan, making a name for themselves in Japanese women's wrestling, and which is hard to do with the fans of
Yeah.
Japanese women's wrestling in Japan, for to be a foreigner and to come over there and make an impact. And for both of them to do that almost back to back,
Yeah.
is very interesting. It's a great pairing in AEW. It's one of the bright spots in AEW. Mariah May is fantastic. She's quickly becoming one of my favorites.
I would have to agree with you. I think there's a question that I may have an answer to this a little bit later, so I'm going to hold off my feelings. But yeah, I completely agree. She's becoming one of the bright spots of Dynamite every week.
Yeah.
Now to a not so bright spot from Dynamite. Jack, like myself, is sad the best friends broke up without getting any gold, but he's glad Chucky T finally got to say shit on cable TV. Yeah,
Oh
he
man.
finished his story and got his ankle broke for it.
Yeah. So what's the trade-off? Was it worth it, Chuck E.T.?
Oh god, that match was ugh.
They always seem to deliver with their parking lot fights.
They
Um,
do.
they deliver every time. So that's really cool to see. It was almost kind of, if you break it down, you're like, damn, it really kind of sucks. Like Trent would act that way against his friends. Honestly,
Yeah.
though, Trent always kind of rubbed me as a guy that, like, he didn't get the I don't want to say the humor, but like there was almost like a cutesiness behind Best Friends when you put them all
Yeah.
together with Orange, Chucky T, Stat. It's almost
Mhm.
like they all had like an endearing quality together as a group.
Yeah.
And I just felt like Trent, his whole attitude, his whole vibe was like, I'm too cool for this. This is kid shit, but I'm just gonna tag
Yeah.
along. So I am interested. The parking lot fight was great. The ankle thing caught me off guard, definitely, because it was kind of brutal, kind of vile and despicable, but
Yeah.
it's gonna do massive wonders to elevate Trent as a character, where he can really amp up what I really feel is kind of just his personality.
Yeah, I would have one slight little gripe with this though. The match itself was great. Don't get me wrong. We agree the match was great.
Mhm.
However, they rushed into that way too quick. Like
Yeah,
you literally made Chuck finally make his decision and then immediately you guys go into a brawl. Isn't this supposed to be like the blow, like the end all say all of this
yeah.
feud? Why would
You
you immediately throw them into a parking lot brawl? Like
Yeah, build it up, and yeah, build it up to you. If you build up the anticipation, you build up the money you can make off the match.
exactly.
You
It's just
know?
they just ran into it for the sake of running into it and it's like, guys,
Yeah,
we don't need to do that, but
yeah. Like, I would have wanted them to start expanding upon what Trent said to Chris in her ear. Um, that's
yes, we need to know.
Yeah, that's your jumping off point. If you want to put your eggs in a basket to get people to go, oh, and instead of doing the parking lot fight, give them a reveal of what that is. And then
Yeah.
what you start doing is you have Trent. antagonizing the group by interrupting Orange Cassidy matches. Have him
Yeah.
interrupt an Orange Cassidy a match like 2-3 weeks in a row to where
Hmm.
both Orange and Chuck gets frustrated, and then Chuck says, let's do the parking lot fight, or just do a regular
Exactly.
match, because again, like you said, the parking lot fight, if you build up a feud, and let's say you go 3 matches in the feud, you save the parking lot fight for the final blow off match,
Exactly. Like,
you know.
I don't get why they did it, but
Yeah, it's like AEW's booking is very reactionary, and it's
yes.
not reactionary. Like, so is WWE's booking to an extent, but the reaction has to be so severe that
Yes.
they literally leave WWE no choice like to budge.
Yeah.
And I feel like Tony Khan as a booker, he leans into the reaction a little too much,
Yeah.
to
Way too much.
dictate where he's going to go. Because if you do that with wrestling fans, we all have different opinions on how to book and how to be creative. And 95% of those ideas are absolute shit.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
you have to have a good filter. If you don't have a good filter and you start placating to the fans, which Tony has a tendency to do sometimes, you everything gets wishy-washy. You start splintering off into different creative avenues, and then you have to build up a multiverse to make sense of it all. Like, so you
Yeah.
don't want to do that. You have to have a clear, concise direction for any creative angle, and you say, unless they come at us with pitchforks and torches, we're not deviating from this 3 to 6 month plan of creative wrestling.
Exactly. And it's just you said it best. He just placates to the fans way too often, and it's bit him in the ass on more than one occasion, and you would think he'd know, but he just still keeps doing it.
Yeah, it's just you can't, like, it's okay to gauge you have to gauge the fan reaction to what happens. You have no choice but to do that as a person that does something in the entertainment business like wrestling. But
Yeah.
again, wrestling people who watch wrestling on TV, the global reach of it all is so massive that you literally have, a couple tens of 20 million people all with different creative ideas. And again, like I said, a lot of them are pretty bad. A good majority
Yes.
are pretty bad that have a lot of holes and stuff like that. Problem is, WWE is very, very good at deciphering that. And they basically, their stance is, again, unless they're coming to the WWE headquarters about to burn the building down over an angle,
Yeah.
we're gonna do what we know is best for the company. And it's always been the end goal is to every angle we put on TV, we're only putting on TV because it's making us money.
Yeah.
That's the
Pretty much.
that's it. That's their end goal. That's their motive, is making money. So everything on TV that you see is not there just to be there. They're looking at it as is this is going to sell some tickets, some merchandise. It's going to increase people watching. It's going to increase our social media numbers. Everything has a plan of revenue.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just all about the money.
Yep,
At the end of the day, it's a business. It's all about the money.
all about the money.
All right, so I'm gonna squish these two questions together because they pretty much are the same topic. So, what are our thoughts on the Tony Khan angle at the end of Dynamite? Jack is interested, but the key is the follow up and the follow through, which we know AEW has issues with sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was fun seeing Tony Khan in the neck brace during the draft, and NFL commentators having to talk about wrestling. Even McAfee talked it up, which was cool. Yes, until Tony opened his mouth, which was the problem. But I'm glad that he didn't insult everybody's intelligence because I think people, not the NFL people obviously, but the AWP fans would have been pretty annoyed with him if he literally came out 2 days later without, or even a day later without the neck brace on. So it's fine. Um, I guess the story wise, at least for Jungle Boy or Jack Perry, it makes sense, I guess, because it's like and like he said, you took 8 months of my career, so you got what was coming to you.
Mm.
The Young Bucks getting involved just kind of, well, we're just doing this because we need to write AEW again, but he's the best boss we ever worked for, so it's like,
They're not
okay.
convincing when they do that.
They're really not. It's just like you're just saying it just to make you sound like you're just trying to be facetious, but it's just
Yeah,
like, again,
yeah.
that's just the problem I have sometimes with the Young Bucks, especially these like obnoxious heel characters where it's just like I really can't buy into you guys at all. They're great wrestlers, don't get me wrong. It's just I think that's the one thing why I've never really like fully gotten invested with them was just the character work sometimes is a little
Yeah,
leaves a lot to be desired.
I think instead of leaning into it, they could have just played up the heels like, yeah, we beat him up. Like instead of like
Yeah.
trying to be like, oh, he's such a nice guy, da 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 da. Just play up into being bad guys. You beat him up,
Yeah.
and that's why you felt you had to do what you had to do, right the ship for AEW. All of that's fine. All of that is fine. Again, I always maintain you could have still did exactly all of this to a T, and you
Hmm.
didn't have to use the all-in CM Punk stuff. You could have did all of this and it would have worked out just fine. You probably could have got the angle over even more without that stuff because people would have looked at it and said, okay, now they're actually being creative with this stuff. Again, it's like he said, it's all about the follow-up and the follow-through. Tony Khan right
Just,
now,
ugh.
his storyline can't fly to AEW events. He's not medically fit to do so. So apparently on Wednesday we're going to see a new authority figure to take over. I think it's going to be more so like he's just going to introduce Kenny Omega as an on-screen authority figure while Kenny
Yeah.
heals to capitalize on being in Winnipeg. And also, Kenny can probably help them in the ratings department. I'm on board with the angle. I think it was great. I think it was well done. I'm just still I have a little bit of trepidation because it's AEW.
Yeah, unfortunately I agree.
Yeah, I think the angle's great, but they have to figure out how to flesh this out. And this is a storyline and angle that should be fleshed out for at least 8 months to a year.
Yeah.
It should be this should be your Stone Cold Steve Austin angle. This should be your NWO angle when NWO was hot. Not saying copy those angles. I'm
Yeah.
saying the relevance and the importance of those angles on their TV shows. It has to be on that level. This is your defining storyline for the company, along with all the other things. But it's kind of to me, and I don't want to get onto a long rant and ramble, but I look at putting the production and the creative together almost like a 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
God, yeah.
for a puzzle to work, it's the two pieces have to fit together and connect, but also two more pieces have to connect to those two other pieces, and they all
Hmm.
have to work together because the grand scheme, the grand picture of it is when you put the whole puzzle piece together, it's
Yeah.
the big picture of it all. It's those individual pieces have to work together. That's why those things like what WWE does with the backstage little Easter eggs, like Dom and Liv walking out of the same room, weaving those storylines together while they're doing an interview with something else.
Yeah.
It's those puzzle pieces that flow together that fit to make the 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle look exactly the way you want it. So that's what AEW has to do is constantly figure out how many puzzle pieces can fit together and not burn everybody out. You want them to see the puzzle coming together. You want them to get excited when it does come together. You don't want them to be like, oh, finally it's over. You know,
Yeah.
you want them to
Yeah.
be excited about it. So that's how Tony Khan has to approach this. He has to approach it like a puzzle piece. And just be careful. Don't placate and don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't shoot for the moon too soon. Just it's okay to flesh it out. make it interesting. You got a whole summer
Yeah.
where you can make stuff interesting for the summer and people will
Yeah.
talk about it. So hopefully they do it right because again, so far so good. This is one of my favorite AEW angles again, and I'm saying that as a person who still believes that they didn't need the all-in footage stuff to make this work. So hopefully
Yeah,
they
because it
do.
didn't.
Yeah, they really did it. Obvious, if anything, if you want to do it a certain way, you just vaguely not even mention the name. You just say, there was an incident backstage where the Young Bucks had to pause their preparation for the match and handle. They had to put on their EVP hats, and that cost them the match at All In. So now we
Yeah.
have to really put on our EVP hats to right the ship because we feel like All Elite Wrestling is sinking. And
Yeah.
that's how you tie it in, and that's how you make it the Elite versus Tony Khan, and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. All right. So Jax, I was gonna say last question, but I know it's not. Wrestling discourse this past week was filled with some dumb drama, disgusting rhetoric. It seems like every week, but this one especially. So let's change that. What are some things in wrestling that have us hyped right now, and who is catching your eye lately with their performances?
Oh, why don't you go?
I'll let you go for it.
All right. I honestly, to me, the turnaround in my interest in NXT, because when
Hmm.
they started NXT 2.0, you can go back and listen to old episodes, and I really wasn't feeling it. But now, present day, with everything that Trick Williams accomplished, the way the women are presented in NXT, it
Yeah.
just it's really really interesting. And it's turned my interest around from I really don't care for NXT to I actually want to see this show. Like I'm actually going to stay up and watch NXT after we're done recording. Um
Yeah.
I really love that we're getting a new presentation style in WWE, new camera style,
Yeah.
the Easter egg little moments backstage, the connecting and weaving of storylines backstage. They'll be doing an interview with somebody one moment, and then there's a backstage brawl the next moment. It's like you got to stay on your toes. So that's the stuff that I love about WWE. It feels fresh, it feels new. It's not just a tagline for a new era. Over in AEW, obviously, like I said, I am interested in the Elite storyline. I think it's very interesting. This could be a defining storyline for the company, to show that they do have some creative juice around them. And you know, the good thing about both companies kind of being so hot in different aspects is you get a different variation of everything if you're an everything sort of wrestling fan. I can
Yeah.
watch WWE and be entertained by the drama and the spectacle of it all and the storylines, and then I can go over to AEW and see Will Ospreay and Daniel Brian Danielson just tear it up and have one of the greatest technical professional wrestling matches of all time. I can watch someone like Swerve, who's a young up and comer,
Yeah.
become a poster child for NXT, the man that's going to lead the company into the future, and things like again like Mariah May and AEW has a good way of broadening your horizons as a wrestling fan because I wouldn't know things about like Riho. I wouldn't
Yeah.
know about Hikaru Shida, Emi Sakura, Mariah May, Timeless
Yeah.
Tony Storm. You look at that. She literally found her way in AEW, and she can take this character, and God forbid something happens uh with AEW where she has to go somewhere else. Like if she has to go back to WWE, she could take
Yeah.
that gimmick, that timeless Tony Storm gimmick, and it's going to be amazing because she is just so good at it. She's really found
Yeah.
her way. And really that doesn't happen without the creative freedom in AEW. So again, as a wrestling fan, like we said last week, we're eating good. Like we've got
Yeah.
so
Oh
many
yeah.
things to be thankful for and to be happy for. It's a really, really good time to be a wrestling fan.
No, I completely agree with you. I feel like The thing that's been getting me all hyped up has been the Uncle Howdy like Easter eggs that have been
Oh.
popping up all over the place because I just vividly remember when they were doing all the White Rabbit stuff and how it was just like every week it was like, what are they gonna do now? Like, who's it gonna be? Because I even remember us talking about it where it's like we're like 99% sure it's Bray Wyatt, but there's also like that 1% of like, well, it could be Karrion Cross because that was like his thing on the Indies. So it was just that like keeping you on the edge of your seat every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And we've we finally got to watch Mom and I we finally got to watch the Bray Wyatt documentary in its entirety this weekend.
Mm.
That hurt a lot. Um Pain, suffering, but yeah, no, it was super cool and then to see like the little Easter egg at the end with Uncle Howdy, so it's just kind of cool that they're kind of getting closer and closer. I feel like it's pretty much a matter of time at this point for something to happen. Maybe backlash, who knows, but
Mm.
so that's got me a little excited. You kind of took most of my answers of who was I with the performances. Like obviously Swerve because we talked about it. How I've been a fan of Swerve for years now, so I think he's earned this title and then some. Osprey because he's Osprey. Like, come on. Um, yeah, Tony Storm too. Like I said, I remember a couple weeks ago. I'm just like, I don't really know anymore. It might be kind of wearing thin with me. And then she cut that promo with the whole the I make love with my demons every night. I'm like, okay, she got me back. I'm back now. And then the promo even after that, that week, it was like insane. And now you got Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa getting into some blows, and that was wild. Mariah May, yeah, Mariah May. I'll admit, I I kind of knew her reputation from Stardom, so I knew she was pretty legit. I just wanted to see with my own eyes. My mom, on the other hand, obviously, she doesn't get to see as much as we get to see on social media and whatnot. And so immediately she's just like, ah, great. She's another blonde, pretty girl, whatever. I'm like, no, no, no. You give her a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, what do you see in her that I don't? I'm like, the fact that she went to Stardom. If you don't go to Stardom just because you go to Stardom. They don't just take anybody. They take
Right.
people who are legit and can go in the ring. So the fact that she held her own and held gold in Stardom pretty much tells you all you need to know. And thankfully we're seeing that now in AEW and people are catching on to it, but I'm going to be interested to see when it comes time to break those two up when it's Tony versus Mariah because that's going to be a fantastic match, whatever pay-per-view it's going to be on.
Yeah. So we are very fortunate right now as wrestling fans.
Yeah, we definitely are. It is a fun time to be a wrestling fan right now for sure. Let me find Jack's last question because he forgot to ask it in his thread. Do we believe in Joe Hendry?
Ah, son of a bitch. We just got Joe Hendry. Now the damn song is in my head.
See, I haven't heard it, so I'm
Oh
completely in
my
the dark here. So
God. Oh my
I'm assuming
God.
I'm lucky.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Joe Hendry. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
I don't have access to
Okay.
current TNA programming, so I don't
Mhm.
get to see the thing. I know of Joe Hendry when he first got to TNA because of that song, and I heard the
Yeah.
song and I was like, shit, like this is catchy as hell. And I'm like, this might be so catchy that he could use it to like further what he's doing. But then I put it in the back of my mind, forget about it. Now it's starting to pick up again with the song. So I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And I play it, and it's like, you ever see the episode of Family Guy, the Rock Lobster episode?
Oh God, yeah.
It's
Oh.
the Joe Hendry song is literally Rock Lobster because you start singing it because it's the catchiest song in the world. Do you understand that this Joe Hendry song is #1 on iTunes in the UK?
Seriously. Oh my
That's
God.
and it's just the memes, and it's a constant barrage of people who have no idea who or what Joe Hendry is, don't watch wrestling, anything like that, and they're like, why is this dude all over my feed? I don't
Why do I have to look at this?
but the song, you have to listen to the song. It's just like I had to physically listen to something else, like listen to something that's in my usual library of music
Yeah.
to get the Joe Hendry out of. I'm thinking about it now, and it's that stupid picture of his face. It's just like, oh my god, I can't believe we just got Joe Hendry.
Well, I can't say we're probably not surprised here, but
I'm gonna make you listen to it because if I have to suffer through it, if I have to suffer through the pain, you're gonna have to suffer through it too.
I I guess.
It's the way of the land.
Fine, it is what it is. I'll listen to it at some point, I promise. All right, so now that we're done with that and you're done being mad, let us go to your friend Bingus's questions so I
Bing it!
don't lose
I haven't
them.
heard Bingus in a while.
So this one's just it's so funny to me. Which off-key wrestler do we think is most likely to order a fillet of fish from McDonald's?
that see there's a lore behind the McDonald's fillet of fish.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a strong-willed individual to publicly say that you consume a McDonald's fillet of fish sandwich and you enjoyed it. So
Yeah,
that's why it has to be somebody offbeat, somebody against the grain.
I
So
have an idea. I have an
oh
idea, and it's so crazy that actually makes sense. Akira Tozawa.
oh
That
Tozawa,
would actually work.
yes, Tozawa would be um a great pick. I need to know, and this is weird because wrestling fans do this where they have these irrational questions that they have to ask wrestlers that make no sense. My question would want to be I have to ask Big E, does he enjoy a McDonald's fillet of fish? Uh I want that, like, for some reason that like piques my curiosity. Does Big E enjoy a fillet of fish?
Well, that's hey, you know what? I'm sure he would answer that for you, maybe.
Maybe I'll try it out. I'll tweet him and see, and just casually ask him, "Hey, Mister Big E, do you enjoy an occasional delicacy from McDonald's known as the fillet of fish with some tartar sauce?"
And he'd probably be like, "Get this guy out of
Yeah, yeah,
here."
I'll get a block for that. So
I mean, maybe not. You never know.
never
Like,
know, never know.
it
We're
depends,
gonna
but
try it out. We're gonna see.
that'll be our. We'll come back with the
Yeah,
results
we'll
next week.
update you on that, guys, next episode.
We'll keep it going. All right. So this one we talked about in the pre-production meeting. Who is on our Mount Rushmore of wrestlers that have never been world champion?
Mm.
We were kind of confused by this at first because we are like, is this in general or WWE? We took it as WWE, so we kind of did a little bit of collaboration here. So
Yeah.
I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Yeah, because a lot of the guys that would be on the list of people that have never held a world championship, they've never held a world championship, but they've held like the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. So
Hmm.
like, and at the time, like those were on the same level. Like NWA's contributions to professional wrestling are going to be timeless. We'll never see or feel the ramifications of their contributions. So like like Dusty, he was an NWA
Yeah.
world champion, never WWE world champion. Mr. Perfect, multiple world heavyweight champion for different territories in the territory days of wrestling. Same deal with Rick Rude. Rick Rude was another
Yeah.
one. I'm sure there was another one because usually there's 4 spots on a Mount Rushmore. Oh, you had mentioned a good one in Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yes.
Jake
Yes,
the
I did.
yeah, Jake the Snake Roberts. That's I think yeah, he would definitely be on a Mount Rushmore with the rest of those guys like Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, Dusty Rhodes, because the impact that Jake Roberts had on professional wrestling during his career, just on his promo style and his psychology alone, and understanding his character, he's made an impact where you felt those things in superstars like Bray Wyatt and like those darker, more unhinged ones like Dean Ambrose that were more
Yeah.
methodical, more, they were thinking with their heads, before they actually did anything, you know.
Hmm.
And the sad part is I don't think like Jake Roberts is a guy that like I don't know if he ever realizes his impact on professional wrestling simply for the simple fact that he never got a chance to be a WWE world champion. You know,
No.
they were gonna set that up, and I think the Ultimate Warrior put a kibosh on that.
Of course he did.
So yeah, but those are big ones. Dusty, I think, Jake Roberts, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, all guys that are legends, bona fide deities in professional wrestling, and they've never held the big one from World Wrestling Entertainment.
Yeah, I'd say we did a good little collab there. I think we did good on that one.
Yeah.
All right, so that was all of Bingus's questions. So thank you.
Thanks, Bangus.
Let us move on to Mike's. With a fun one to start off. Why did Tony go back to little brother syndrome?
Oof.
At the end of the day, he can't fucking help himself.
He can't. He can't.
That's just it. Like, you literally. I don't want to go too far into this because we still have some questions left, but it's just like you had the opportunity on the NFL draft. It's not like it was some secondary sport, whatever. It was a nationally televised draft with millions of people watching. You could have put over your company. You could have put over, oh, I don't know. We have the first like African American champion that was just crowned. And instead, you decided to completely take a low hanging fruit shot at WWE.
Yeah.
Like, why just
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, it wasn't a good look. You
No,
can
it never is.
you can look. I'm not here. I can't be here and break down the situation when it comes to the things that Vince McMahon done. I can't break them down. The only thing I could do is say that they were deplorable, and I feel bad for the victims of all the bad things that Vince McMahon has done as they continue to come to light. That should be
Yeah.
the main focus. That should be anything. I can't be someone that's going to break this down and try to find holes of who's lying and who's corroborating and who's not telling their side of the story. The whole corporate office of WWE still has all. I can't do that. It's just not in me because I'm more of I need to see facts. You can't just say stuff like and for me to believe it. I believe it now because I saw the text messages. We've saw the court documents. So the evidence is right there. By you telling me, oh, Triple H knew about it, Stephanie McMahon knew about it, Nick Khan knew about it. How do you know? Oh, because so and so tweeted about it and I read it, so that's what I'm telling you. That doesn't what am I gonna do with that? Like as
Literally.
a person who is just a podcaster that's a wrestling fan, that's putting my reputation on the line and potentially affecting my chance to work with people because I'm spouting off rumors that come off of Twitter,
Yeah.
and the simple fact that it is messed up that Tony Khan takes this situation that has real life people that are dealing with real life trauma and he's using that for a dunk to make a joke, to make some banter.
Yeah.
It,
It's like, just shut up.
it's really messed up. That should be the focal point, is that like he's using this to get off Twitter jokes. Like,
Yeah.
where's the empathy for the poor woman that had to deal with these things for that Vince McMahon did? Why are we using those things as jokes? We shouldn't joke about someone's trauma like that. His deal is that he's trying to be Paul Heyman. He's trying to be Eric Bischoff, but he literally has no cool factor.
No.
He has no cool factor. So it just it literally looks like the little brother, kicking and flailing because he can't go with his big brother to hang out with his big brother's friends.
Yeah.
It's that's what it is. It's just it is that little brother syndrome, and it's just like, again, like you said, they could have took the time to talk about Swerve, being a young up and coming wrestler who's going to be the face of AEW as their world champion. He just so happens to be the first Black American champion, heavyweight champion for AEW. You could talk about Will Ospreay going from Japan, building up his career as one of the greatest wrestlers of this current generation, who now wants to wrestle only for All Elite Wrestling and put on
Yeah.
classics like he did with Bryan Danielson, who is also a roster member of All Elite Wrestling and will go down as one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time. Yes, we have that in All Elite Wrestling. Again, that's what you should be doing, not okay. I get the fact that it's cool to see the retweets and all the comments and all the AEW loyalists come to your defense and say, good job, Tony, sticking it to the big man, because, you know, that company is that company. But, like, it's not doing anything for you. It's not making you money. So it all boils down to a point that we made a couple weeks ago. Sometimes I feel like because Tony Khan has this unlimited revenue stream that he can put into AEW, the motivation to make one extra dollar that you did before in ticket sales, in merch sales, in a ratings boost, anything like that that can boost your bottom line. Being that he's so rich and he can sink unlimited amount of resources into AEW, the motivation to make money in AEW doesn't seem to be there. And if I'm a wrestler for AEW, I'm sacrificing my body to elevate the product. I look at that and I go, well, if he's not trying to make extra money for the company, you know,
What are we doing?
Yeah, how do I know if, like, I need an extra boost in my paycheck? How do I know I can comfortably go to him and negotiate a raise? You know,
Yeah.
because how do I know he's just going to be like, A, you don't deserve it, or yeah, I'll just give you whatever you want so you'll go away.
Yeah, it's just not a good look.
It's not.
At all.
It's not a very good look. Bottom line, everybody needs to stop making jokes about everybody else, because it's the people.
It's dumb.
The people take it too. It's like the people who are not even a part of the joke, the fans, they take it too far because they don't use their brains.
Yeah, because they just take that as, well, he's taking a shot at him, so we might as well, except they're just, like you said, gonna take it way too far,
Yeah,
and then it just becomes one giant fucking mess.
Yeah, it's insensitive to the poor lady who had to deal with those traumatic events through Vince McMahon. It's a slap into the face to people who had to deal with the traumatic events from Harvey Weinstein. Like, and you did it, you thought it was funny, and then your retort when they ask you, why did you do that? Oh, it brought a lot of eyes to AEW. No, it didn't.
Did it though?
No, it
No, it
didn't.
didn't.
It absolutely did not. You squandered an opportunity to promote your brand on the NFL Network. You idiot.
It's
If I'm AEW's like PR person, their publicist or whatever, I'm freaking the fuck out.
No, they're probably just like their head in their hands on their desks, just like again.
It's
like, I don't get paid enough for this shit.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And yet, it feels like every other fucking week we're talking about stupid shit like this.
It takes away from any of the good stuff that we could talk about.
Yeah, just makes them come across as insensitive. Like even outside of the woman who's like this is happening to and whatever, if you're a fan of AEW and God forbid something like that has happened to you, what does that make you? That just makes you look like, oh, well, the owner of the company that I enjoy and like watch wrestling from doesn't give a shit about my trauma.
Not to mention they pay Ric Flair, who's Ric Flair, and they also pay Chris Jericho as an employee who's notorious for making people sign NDAs when he doesn't get his ways.
Yes, exactly. So it's just like
what are we doing here? You're throwing stones at a glass house, buddy. Look inside your own house.
Yeah, it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Yeah. Why would AEW feature New Japan in the main event match spot and not their own champion Swerve?
Ooh, and I know we have another comment about Swerve. And originally I was kind of the same sentiment. Like he should have had the big fanfare on Dynamite coming out to the big thing. I see what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were using the lead in from the NBA
Mm-hmm.
playoffs into Collision,
Yeah.
and they used that lead in that they knew people were going to stick around, and that's when they brought out Swerve to do the promo, and then he eventually had the match with Claudio. That was great. And it ended up being a ratings boost for them, but apparently the ratings boost that they got after that took a dive. So it was like
Yeah.
it wasn't sustainable, but it was smart. It was a very smart move to do that. And I see why they didn't do it on Dynamite. The thing is, they could have easily, copied a WWE thing that probably people wouldn't have noticed and just advertised that Swerve was going to make his very first appearance as AEW world champion on Collision and not Dynamite. Of course, there would have been
Yeah.
people that would have been like, yeah, man, why couldn't we see Swerve right off the bat at Dynamite? But again, it would have made Collision a bigger deal and got people to watch Collision. But again, it was the lead in from the NBA playoffs, which they did a great job because the announcers for the NBA playoffs were talking about AEW before the show was coming up. They were complimentary towards Tony Schiavone as an announcer. So,
Yeah.
that was smart because people who watch TNT who are older fans probably didn't know that AEW existed. And they're like, wait, Tony Schiavone from WCW? This is wrestling on TNT? Like,
Yeah.
and it worked for that lead in. So it was smart. I think if anything, what they should have did on Dynamite was at least advertise this is going to be Swerve's first appearance as world heavyweight champion for AEW, and people would have tuned into Collision. Everything would have been just fine.
Exactly, but they just kind of make very stupid decisions sometimes that really make you shake your head.
Yeah, I mean, and it just opened up a whole like he was saying earlier about the shitty discourse this week in wrestling. Like having that match with Kyle Fletcher, it was a good match. It just led to a whole
Yeah.
bunch of discourse and really shitty shit from like Jim Cornette, and it was just like this was a particularly bad week for wrestling drama.
Yeah, which is
The
just
Weinstein comments, and then the Jim Cornette deal with the thumbnail to his YouTube thing, that was just vile and disgusting, and
yeah.
unfortunately it just elevated his platform and his content. So good job.
Yeah. 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 Um Oof. What is our greatest personal wrestling what if? Mike's is what if Owen Hart hadn't dropped Austin on his head with that pile driver?
Mm, that's a good
um,
one. That's a good. It's hard to beat that one.
I think I got one that might beat that one just
Okay.
a little bit. Well, one that actually could have very easily directly affected this. What would have happened if Triple H didn't take the fall in '96 and would have ended
Ooh,
up winning King of the Ring?
ooh.
Mm-hmm.
If they never did the curtain call.
Yeah. If well,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah. Because if Triple H would have won King of the Ring in '96, not only would that have changed his trajectory and Austin's, that would have changed the whole wrestling industry's
Yeah,
trajectory at that point. Like,
yeah, because in a way, like you said, he wins the 96 King of the Ring. We don't get Austin 316,
nope,
right? If the
nope.
curtain call never happens and we see the good guys in collusion with the bad guys, it never gives the illusion that when Nash and Scott Hall go to WCW, it can be an invasion angle. Like they're still working for the WWE here to take over WCW.
Hmm.
So that is a big one. That
Yeah,
that
see, I,
tr- that trumps that trumps what I had easily. Wow. That
yeah,
is
see,
that
I thought of that was literally the first one I thought of because what were we watching? Mom and I were watching something. It might have been something about Triple H or I don't really remember, but I'm just like, how crazy would it have been if he actually did end up winning that King of the Ring that year? That would have changed literally everything.
yeah.
Literally everything. It's not even, it's like mind melting levels of just
That would have
what
changed
could have
everything
happened.
on both sides of
Yeah,
WCW and WWE.
the
Wow.
multiverse.
Yeah,
We need to find the
that's
multiverse
a
of what
good one.
happened if Triple H won that
Kind
one.
of just like that puts mine to kind of to shame. It's just
Yeah,
like
we still want to hear yours
it's a,
though. Like,
it puts mine to shame. Like personal bias is like, what if Eddie Guerrero never had that heart attack? You know,
oh,
could we have gotten? They were building towards Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels for a WrestleMania
yeah,
match.
ugh,
And you know, like
yeah,
Shawn Michaels is the most clutch wrestler of all time. You know,
yeah,
I put Shawn Michaels on my Mount Rushmore, but in terms of big matches where the lights are the brightest, Shawn Michaels is going to over deliver every single time. They,
hmm,
they call him Mr. WrestleMania, but look at the matches that he's lost at WrestleMania.
yeah,
You know,
oh yeah,
he's won some big ones, but he's also lost some big ones. But nobody gives a fuck about the losses because they were great matches. So
yeah,
imagine if Eddie Guerrero, who I believe was only like he was in his mid-30s, you know?
yeah. It wasn't that
Yeah,
old.
he wasn't. He still had at least a good 8 to 10 years left of his career, you know.
Yeah,
So we could have got that. We could have got Guerrero Cena where Cena was at his peak, you know.
yeah, oh,
Guerrero Edge, you know,
yeah,
another
yeah,
Guerrero Angle feud, you know,
yeah.
more
It,
more Rey Mysterio stuff. Like, so to me, it was just like there were so many great matches that could have been had, you know, and stuff like small stuff, like if Kerry Von Erich never had the accident where they had to amputate his foot, you know,
yeah,
could he have been a bigger deal in the WWF?
yeah.
Um,
I'd say the most recent one is what would have happened if we wouldn't have lost Bray. Like,
Bray, that's a good one. Yeah, because that's just like where would his position be in this new era of WWE?
yeah, because like even just watching the ending of the documentary, you see like this is what the new Fiend would have looked like. These were like all little Easter eggs on the gear, and it's just like, God damn it, we missed that. I missed him going with Uncle Howdy again. Like, son of a bitch. Like,
Yeah,
that the crazy thing about that, and I'm sure you'll remember this from the documentary. I don't want to get too far off the topic. Was I what blew my mind about that was how they said, he had the heart problems and whatever, and they like gave him that vest that if his heart stopped, it shocked him back to life.
yeah,
And it killed me how at that one line where his mom was just like, he didn't have the vest on, and I don't know why. No one knows why he didn't have it
yeah.
on. It's
He
just
left
that
it in
one
his
moment.
car.
Yeah, and just that one simple mistake just changed everything, and it's like, oh, this is depressing.
Yeah,
Like, shit.
yeah.
But
Another
yeah,
one, Austin walking out of the WWE because he didn't want to take the loss to Brock Lesnar in the
yeah,
qualifying
yeah,
matches to the King of the Ring. If he would have taken the loss to Brock Lesnar, what would that have done for Brock Lesnar's career as a rookie starting out? You know, and what
yeah.
would have been the projection for Austin's career as he's heading into like the twilight of his career?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like that. We could literally do an entire episode of just what ifs,
yeah,
like what could have
yeah.
happened
We
if something
we
happened.
really could.
That could be a special one, maybe someday.
One day,
But
yeah, that might be something to look into. I might have
yeah,
to dark side of the ring it up and look into
yeah.
some wrestling stories and see.
Oof. You might have to. You never know. Is Dixie Carter the goat of owners taking a bump by their employees?
She definitely looks the best because
Yeah,
think about how crazy is that, like the first stunner that Vince McMahon and the last stunner that Vince McMahon ever
oh
took
god,
are literally the 1A and 1B of the worst stunner
terrible.
bells of all time.
Literally, they're so
They're so
bad.
bad.
Like,
Tony Khan just looked ridiculous taking that liver shot. He just
he
crumpled.
just looked. It just looked like he got knocked out. Like, and then like 5 seconds later, then he's like, "Oh yeah, I have to hold my like stomach or whatever." It's like, dude, that's not how that.
This is
Okay,
he did the oh no and like crumbled like a piece of paper. It was just
literally, it was so bad.
yeah.
Like,
I gotta say Dixie might actually take the W on this one. A rare Dixie Carter W.
by pretty much by default though, because let's be honest, the other she didn't really have much
Yeah,
competition. But
and she had Bully Ray, and the thing is, say what you want about
yeah,
Bully Ray, anytime he
yeah,
power bombed a woman through a table, they were the most protected
yeah,
person on the planet. You know,
He did that quite a lot, didn't
he did
he?
he did it
He
to
did.
Stacy Keibler, did it to Lita, did it to Mae Young,
Yeah.
did it to Dixie Carter. Like if you were
Mhm.
if you were a woman in WWE programming during the Attitude Era and
You
post
watch out.
Attitude Era, you were going through a table, you know.
Literally though, like
But like once we knew he can safely powerbomb a 90-year-old woman through a table, I think we were good.
yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, we were
yeah,
fine.
so I think Dixie Carter was in good hands.
I would have to agree with that one. Uh, where's Odyssey Jones? I have no
He
idea,
got
to be
drafted
honest.
to Raw in well, he stays on Raw.
Last
Yeah,
year?
no, well, no, he got drafted to Raw again this year in the
Yeah.
post picks. Post
Ah.
draft picks. So
Okay, as if people didn't forget,
yeah,
but all
so
right.
he's on Raw, but I fear that that's going to be something that
Another
he's
joke.
going to have to work to wash away from. They're like, it's for a while. It's going to be when he finally shows up. It's going to be like, oh, it's Odyssey Jones. He's finally
It's
here.
him.
It's going to be like the Veer Mahan situation.
Literally, literally though.
It's like Veer's coming, Veer, and then he finally shows up, and you're like, and then nothing happens. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Odyssey Jones, who I think has a lot of upside. The small bits that we seen in NXT was cool because he's a really, really large man, but he kind of comes off kind of like a teddy bear. But they could use that to be like, if you piss him off, like
Yeah.
he's going to destroy
Hmm.
you. So
Kind of like Keith Lee in a way.
yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great way. And like with Odyssey Jones, he has like a cheerful kind of demeanor to him that you can
Yeah.
actually use, that like he's a really nice guy, and then you cross him and he becomes the scariest man on the planet. Like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's great.
Exactly. All right. And Mike's last questions are: who do we want to be Ilya Dragunov and Lyra Valkyria's first feuds?
Her feuds.
Lyra's, I think, because this is one of those bookmarks I'm glad actually showed up on Twitter. Looking at the roster, I feel like it's very. I'm not gonna say it's an obvious and easy pick, but it's again you kind of sometimes just have to go with a reliable. Her and Natty would be really good.
Yeah. Her and Natty would be good. It'd be cool to see her and Becky have a match again, this
Yeah,
time on Raw, so people can see how good that match on NXT was.
yeah,
That was a show stealer that they had in NXT. So if they could revisit that, they would have some money on their hands there. Lyra Valkyria Natty, that would be good. Lyra Valkyria. I'm trying to go through in my head the women that she can kind of link up with. They could do something in terms of going straight new school, and well, no, Blair went to SmackDown.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that won't work. Roster draft. This is tough for Lyra now. Now I've got to break my head. You know what? I'll take your girl, Lyra and Shayna. I would
Oh,
like that. I
oh,
would honestly like that.
that'd be
Lyra
wild.
and Shayna, because you take the grappler that Shayna is against the technical prowess of Lyra Valkyria. I think we would get some good stuff. We would get some good grappling wrestling. So Shayna, Zoe would be great. Yeah, so I think Shayna
I'd
would
like
be
to
the
see it.
best one. For Ilya, I want him to go after a hard hitter. So I mean, I would save Gunther,
Yeah, save him.
but I'd go Ilya Sheamus. I'd go Ilya
Oh,
Drew
oh, oh.
McIntyre, because with Drew McIntyre, this is the crazy thing. Drew
Hmm.
McIntyre and CM Punk have the hottest angle for WWE going into the summer, and they can't even physically touch.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
mastery of what they're doing with Drew and CM Punk. However, being that they can't touch for a couple months, why not weave in some Dragunov stuff? And then when you least expect it, CM Punk comes into the fold to stick it to McIntyre, which would elevate Ilya because he took the W against an established star like Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, that would be a good. Honestly throw Dijak in there too.
Oh my god, the matches that Ilya and Dijak had, and they
Mhm.
really need to elevate Dijak because I feel like they took him off of NXT right when he was about to be on to something big. Like, he could have catapulted into a mainstay for NXT, and they were like, no, let's put him on the main roster. But he's another one. He's another one of those big guys that can have a good match against those heavy strikers like Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. So again, similar like to what I said about Lyra, how you want to mix it up with another person that's new and fresh, Dijak and Ilya on the main roster, turn that into a feud, and that'll elevate NXT because people are like, well, this is what they're doing in NXT. Maybe I should be watching.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we like when the NXT people get called up because there is plenty of options
Yeah,
and plenty of wild, and I mean wild,
yeah,
possibilities down the line. Like, I mean, I'd like to see Lyra and Dakota at some
yeah.
point.
That would be that because they have a similar style with
Yes.
Dakota having a slighter advantage because she's a better striker.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be perfect. Again, it's like I said earlier, it's the puzzle piece. It's putting together the puzzle pieces for the bigger picture. So this is how you elevate a bunch of different people at one time, and it's all working for WWE right now.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. So I think that is all of Mike's questions. So, Mike, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we're in the home stretch. I think we got Mom's questions last. If I can get to them. Technology.
Hmm.
All right. So we touched on this earlier. In her opinion, she doesn't think they gave Swerve the proper credit for winning the title. There was no big like celebration, confetti, or anything. He's the first African American AEW World Champion. That's all he gets. I kind of see her point, and then I also see like what you were saying, where it's like Collision was going to get more
Mm-hmm.
views, but it was just kind of odd how they did that. If they would have just waited until Collision to do it, as opposed to just having him fight Kyle Fletcher on Dynamite, that would have,
Right.
helped.
Right.
But
I
yeah,
yeah, I think I understand the sentiment because I probably would have said the same. I said the same exact thing. But then when somebody brought up, well, that opening spot for Collision did big numbers because they had the lead in from the playoffs. I'm like, okay, not only does that make sense, that was a very smart move on Tony Khan's part. So,
yeah,
he just capitalized on what would put more eyes on his product, which is why the NFL network thing is so baffling because, like I said, it's kind of one step forward, two steps back. One step forward using the lead in from the playoffs to elevate Swerve, two steps back because you say some dumb shit on the NFL network when you're supposed to be talking about AEW. And the crazy thing is, NFL network is closely associated with a lot of TKO board members, the board members that
yeah,
own the World Wrestling Entertainment. So you're
yeah.
you're literally like on a sub adjacent company's program that's direct to
Yeah,
your
that's
competitor.
smart. That's smart, but he hasn't been really been known for making smart
I'm
decisions
like,
lately. So
whoever's their PR person is they're chewing tums by the minute.
I would, yeah. So I mean, like Tony and the neck brace at the draft was funny. I'm glad,
Yeah,
like again, they at least followed that through. But then he opened his mouth, and it's like, well,
yeah,
never mind. That was
it's
nice
like
while it
the
lasted.
the analogy made no sense. We're the Pepsi of
No,
pro wrestling. They're the Harvey Weinstein of what the fuck does
the
that even mean?
and it's like, how stupid does he have to be to realize the reason why WWE would have been the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling is not even in the company anymore. So,
Like, yeah, like, but like,
God,
okay,
Pepsi and
Coke would have been too obvious. Well, sometimes taking the obvious route is the smartest thing to do in this situation
yeah,
because you tried to
yeah,
make a dunk that had no reason, no benefit to your program, your company, your brand. Like,
nothing.
oh my god, oh my god.
It's like, stop
Yeah,
talking. Just
it's
stop
it's just,
talking.
it's if I can figure out these things that are being a detriment to the company of AEW, that's a problem because I'm a nobody. I'm, for all intent and purposes, a fucking blithering idiot. If I can figure these things out and see that they're a problem for your company, you should see this a mile away, and yet you still do it.
You would think, but the obvious, as my mom always says, sometimes the obvious eludes
I
people. So
I guess it's just he's so fixated on being the next Paul Heyman that he's really showing that he's just a internet wrestling message board nerd, because that's what he is. And people have stories about, like, oh my god, the guy I used to talk to in the AOL chat room is now running a wrestling company. You know, like,
yeah,
you know,
literally,
like,
like,
what are we doing
ugh,
here? What are we doing here?
what are we doing? I don't know. And finally, our last question is: what match, in our opinion, will steal the show at Backlash?
Ooh, that's
I know
tough.
we got 5. I don't know if they're going to announce any
Oh
more, but
yeah,
as of this recording, so you got Cody and AJ for the undisputed title,
that's my winner.
Damian, Damian and Jay for the world heavyweight title,
That might be a sleeper.
Bailey, Naomi, and Tiffany for the women's title.
They didn't make that
Um,
a triple threat with
yeah,
they
Bailey, Naomi, and
oh,
Tiffany.
Bailey, Naomi, and Tiffany.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, all
Um,
right, all right.
Kabuki Warriors versus Bianca and Jade. We kind of talked about that already, unfortunately. We know how that's going to end.
Yeah,
And Randy and Kevin versus the Bloodline. So Solo and Tamatonga.
the MFT.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right, the MFT making a debut. How about that? Like Tamatonga,
yeah.
you know,
Like, in what world are we living in?
and,
That's the
and
thing. Like,
Tamatonga hasn't even said a word, and that's the crazy
no.
thing is, like, Tamatonga is a super charismatic, super, like, cool dude. Like, he's just a cool dude. When he used to come out, with the Gorillas of Destiny face paint,
Yeah,
and he would do that little movement like a snake to the ring. He was just, I mean, Gorillas of Destiny, their OG theme is my ringtone.
yeah,
So it's
nice.
just like to see him come in, make an impact for WWE after being in Japan for so long and getting on a pay-per-view right off the bat is great. But so far, like, a lot of the matches, I mean, Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles never had a match together, you know, and this is the
Yeah,
first time they're locking up. That's gonna be good because, I mean, you got two pros, two absolute pros, and
literally.
AJ Styles is looking jacked to the gills, so it's amazing. Um,
And you gotta not take him for granted because we don't know how long he's gonna have this. Honestly.
yeah, that's something that's been brought up a lot is AJ Styles, and the fans both know that we're coming to the end. We're coming to the end of the road of the Phenomenal One's career. So it's going to be a massive void. So he's doing everything he can, similar to like Bryan Danielson, to make this a big year for him. And Damian Priest and Jey Uso both have a lot to prove.
Yeah,
Damian Priest has to prove that making him the champion was a wise decision, and Jey Uso has to kind of prove that he really is main event Jey Uso. He's not main event, but, like, to me, like I said last night watching the show, it kind of just feels like he's a middle of the card, middle of the roster kind of guy. But they present him like a main eventer. The only thing is his booking isn't main event. It's middle of the road guy. So he's looking like a middle of the road guy when he's supposed to look like a top part of the roster, which eventually I think they will. I feel like I said, Jay is a lot like Booker T of WCW. He's a lot like DDP, where it's like he's going to have to fight to prove that he could be that main event guy. And when he does, and he gets that opportunity, he's going to open people's eyes. But again, Backlash, I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too. Yeah, I would probably have to say Cody and AJ is gonna. It's you can almost can't even say steal the show because I think that's just guaranteed going to be the best
Yeah.
match. But it's just that going to be that good. Like, and it's wild that they have never wrestled one time. Like, it's just kind of insane that it's taken this long to get to that point. But hey, better late than never, right?
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's going to be fun. I can't wait to watch.
Me neither. And that is it. We did it.
We did it. All right. And we're under an hour in terms of
I
questions.
know.
That's insane. And I'm about to juice up all the time right now. If you made it this far into the episode, thank you very much. Please consider hitting that subscribe button on whatever platform you're using to listen to the podcast. It's available on all major podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Hell, you could even listen to it on Amazon Music. It's all available there on any platform of your choosing. If you can't find it on the platform of your choice, head over to our Linktree link, which is linktree.com/ringside rundown. It has a list of like 30 plus platforms that it's on. If you don't see yours, just DM me on social media and we'll get you a link on a silver platter. The only caveat is you have to give us back the silver platter because we only have one. It's very expensive. It's a one of one, so we need it back.
Gotta give it back.
Yeah. Speaking of social media, usually social media was easy. Hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at Ringside Rundown. Those links are still available, but now we've expanded. We've expanded in the past 2 weeks to the point where I think I'm going crazy. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Ringside Rundown. We're also on Facebook. All you got to do is go to facebook.com/Ringside Rundown. We're also on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel directed by me where I'm going to start doing a lot of different YouTube exclusive stuff, but you can find clips of the podcast, full episodes of the podcast, and full episodes of our watch-alongs on Twitch on the YouTube channel. Just search for Erik_Ringside, and that'll bring you to the channel. Like I said, we do live streams for all WWE and AEW programming. So I've been super busy with that. We're
doing a good job, though.
Thank you.
It's definitely fun to watch when I'm at work, and it gives me a good chuckle when I'm at my desk.
Thank you. We're doing watch-alongs for Raw, for Dynamite, SmackDown. We're doing Backlash in the afternoon this week and on Saturday, and when Collision's on and stuff like that. So definitely, if you like to do watch-alongs, check out the twitch.tv/ringside rundown. And we're also on TikTok now. Jesus Christ, we're even on TikTok ringside_rundown. So again, we've expanded. We even have merch now. We have a merch store through Streamlabs, which you can find via our Twitch. Again, that's twitch.tv/ringside rundown. If you want my personal uncensored thoughts on anything pro wrestling, follow me on Twitter at Wrestling Chron. That's Wrestling CHRON. Shay, please, what do you have?
So I can give you a bit of a break. You can find me on Twitter at ShayleneHickson21. Yeah, sometimes I'm screaming about wrestling, sometimes I'm screaming about Drag Race, video games, pretty much you name it. If I just feel the need to scream about it, then I scream about it. So if that's your thing, then follow me over on Twitter.
Yeah. The big thing is follow us on Twitch, because we're doing the watch along stuff. So I'll be back. If you're listening to us, it's Wednesday. So this evening I'll be on Twitch going live about 7:45 for AEW Dynamite, and we'll do a watch along with that where you can see my really bad jokes, which correlates into highlights for YouTube and on TikTok. The YouTube is going crazy as we speak. I don't know why. This whole algorithm thing and social media and content creation, you'd think I would have a handle on it, but I'm finding out so many new things that it's driving me a little crazy. It's driving me a little mad, but I'm having fun.
Yeah. Hey, just take a break.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm definitely going to take a break. I think Sunday I'm going to use that opportunity for it to be a true day off from this whole thing. But we're doing big things at the Ringside Rundown. I'm having a lot of fun expanding, and we're actually getting some new people checking out what we do. So that's pretty cool, right, Jay?
Yeah, that's what we want.
That's what we want. So again, thank you guys for listening to the episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want, share amongst your wrestling friends. We greatly appreciate it. We'll be back with another episode of the Ringside Rundown next week. For Shay Hickson, my name is Eric Vasquez. You guys have a good one. See you later.
See you later, guys.